As the sun rose over the racetrack, the roar of the engines electrified the air. The F1 Academy drivers lined their cars up in their grid positions, ready to go. Susie Wolff looked over the racers with pride. She remembered the adrenaline rush of sitting in the driver's seat. She knew just how much time and effort each of the women had put in to earn their slot. As the seconds ticked down, the drivers checked their pedals and readied their hands on the wheels. The whirring engines and the cheers of the crowd echoed in Susie's ears. Everyone watched as the starting lights turned on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They held their breaths, waiting for them to blink off and start the race. With all lights on, it would only be seconds now. And then, go! The lights went off and so did the racers, their cars flying down the circuit. The race was on. I'm Ariana Bravo, and I'm a Formula One presenter. And this is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, a fairy tale podcast about the real-life rebel women who inspire us. On this episode, Susie Wolff, racing driver and advocate for women in Formula One racing. Susie Wolff was born in Oban, a small coastal town in Scotland. Her parents, John and Sally, owned a motorcycle dealership and were both passionate riders. They had fallen in love when Sally entered John's shop looking for her first motorbike. So their daughter's interest in driving did not come as a surprise. Susie's parents had seen her need for speed and thought 4 spinning wheels might do the trick. So when Susie was 8, they took her to a kart racing circuit for the first time. As Susie gripped the steering wheel, the roar of the engine vibrated through her entire body. With every turn of the track, she felt the thrill of acceleration and the power of control. The wind rushed past her, pulling at her race suit and making her heart pound with excitement. In that moment, she knew that kart racing was more than just a hobby. It was a passion waiting to be unleashed. Karting soon became Susie's life. She trained as much as possible, perfecting her techniques and pushing herself to go faster and faster. By the time she was 18 years old, Susie placed 15th in the World Karting Championship. With this early success under her belt, she began to turn her attention to racing bigger, more powerful cars. But becoming a professional car racer was no easy task. The world of motorsports was, and still is, dominated by men. Many qualified women can't get the money they need to progress to higher levels of racing. Investors and sponsors are wary. No woman has ever won a Formula One race, they say. Why should we take that risk? But Susie didn't listen to the doubters. She knew that women could compete and beat men, if only they were given the opportunity to train at the same level. There was one thing Susie knew for sure. She needed a team. Only a team of professional mechanics, engineers, and fitness coaches could give her that ultra-tailored training that could allow her to compete at the best of her abilities. And only a team could make sure she was always driving a top-performing car. Susie had to come up with a plan. She spent all of her savings on a test drive with a Formula Renault racing car. Renault cars are one of the first levels of motor racing, where drivers can learn how to operate a vehicle at higher speeds. The cars can accelerate from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 3 seconds, shorter than the time it takes to read this sentence. Susie was hoping that someone would notice her in the Formula Renault track and decide to invest in her future as a professional racer. Susie knew this might be her only chance. She zipped around the track, taking the turns as fast as she could and going all out on the straights. At the end of the test, the sponsors were impressed. One of the sponsors even signed her right then and there. Finally, Susie could build her team and begin her career as a professional driver. For 3 years, Susie trained hard and competed in the Formula Renault UK Championship. She finished on the podium 3 times and earned 2 nominations as British Young Driver of the Year. Susie's momentum was building and she qualified for the British Formula 3. F3 cars were the next level up. Like the Renault cars, but better. If she mastered F3 racing, Susie would be able to move up to F2 and then even F1, the premier level of racing. F1 or Formula 1 is the top level of racing with the fastest cars. Drivers squeeze into tiny cockpits which get incredibly hot, up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Drivers need quick reflexes and precise steering to react to changes on the track, and they have to have strong, powerful legs to stomp on the pedals. This means that drivers must be in excellent shape, both physically and mentally, to race well and stay safe. Everything was aligning for Susie. But then, while she was in intense training, she broke her ankle on a run. It was a serious injury, and she knew right away that she'd have to take time off. She wouldn't be able to train with such a bad break, let alone race. Susie lost her sponsor and lost her seat in Formula 3. She was so discouraged that she considered giving up her racing career entirely. But then one day, the phone rang. Someone from a top sponsor, Mercedes-Benz, had noticed her and offered her a contract racing another type of car, called the DTM. They would give her a 1-year contract to race once her ankle was healed. Susie jumped at the chance and got on a flight to Germany. At the end of the first season, Susie had raced so well that they renewed her contract for 6 more years. With that, Susie was back on track to achieving her dream. While racing for Mercedes in Germany, Susie also started working as a development driver for Williams, a Formula 1 team. She loved racing the more powerful cars, watching the world flash by. The following year, she decided to commit to Formula 1 full-time. This was a big deal. No woman had even come close to a Formula 1 circuit for over 2 decades. Susie could hardly contain her excitement. Then, soon after, another dream came true. On a Grand Prix weekend, Susie was allowed to take a few practice runs on the track. This was one of the biggest races of the year, and there were many cameras and spectators. Susie put her helmet on and slid into the low-slung cockpit. She adjusted the steering wheel and buckled the harness. As the engine roared to life, Susie felt ready to push the limits of speed and skill. With a surge of acceleration, her car hurtled down the track with precision. Susie was fast, so fast that her lap time was just 0.2 of a second longer than some of the world's greatest drivers. That kind of recognition felt amazing. But a year later, after a few more practice runs, Susie felt it was time to hang up her racing helmet. She was ready for a change. She decided that if she couldn't break into the sport by being an excellent driver, then she would have to try another way. One way or another, she was determined to help the next generation of women enter the world of professional racing. The opportunity came when Formula One asked her to become the managing director of the F1 Academy, an all-female series to help women reach the highest level of motorsport. Susie now had the opportunity to drive change from the inside. With the new all-female F1 Academy, each of the 10 Formula One teams is sponsoring their own women drivers to represent their team. And as the leader of the academy, Susie can make sure that the young women selected are offered the best training facilities and the best equipment. She knows that even something as simple as the fabric of a racing suit can make a huge difference. Susie wants women to see themselves in motorsport, both on and off the track. F1 Academy has helped create a space in F1 for women to take the wheel and receive the training that they need to succeed. There are also many opportunities for women to be involved in motorsport outside of being a driver, including careers in engineering, strategizing, and mechanical work, all three of which are essential to any successful race. In a recent interview, Susie said, "When you switch on the TV in Miami this weekend, you will see a 19-year-old girl zipping up a Ferrari race suit. And that's such a powerful image." Although only 5 women have competed in Formula One history so far, today over 40% of the Formula One fan base is female. And with more and more young drivers entering the academy, things are destined to change. That day on the track, Susie looked at all the women lined up in their cars and knew that she was doing something right. The future of racing was in their hands. And that future is starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. This podcast is a production of Rebel Girls. It's based on the book series Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. This story was narrated by me, Ariana Bravo. The story was produced by Haley Dapkus with sound design and mixing by Mumble Media. It was written by Elena Favili, fact-checking by Eliza Kirby. Our intern was Arianna Griffiths. Our executive producers were Joy Smith and Jess Wolff. Original theme music was composed and performed by Elettra Bargiacchi. A special thanks to Susie Wolff and the whole Rebel Girls team who made this podcast possible. Until next time, stay Rebel.